welcome back to Cosmic Comics. We're here for the top 8 of our FNM. I'm Kagan.
And I'm Brad.
And so I believe the match that we're going to be going right into is going to be last week's champion Nick Delaney on his mono black super aggressive deck, taking on Jasdeep in his Esper mid-range aggro deck.
So,
So Jaws is kind of a aggro value deck, if you will.
So we're looking at two decks that we've already seen today, so you'll get to see some cards you recognize if you've been tuning in all day. And I'm ready for it to start.
Yes, and so there's going to be some interesting cards that match up here. I think one of the advantages that Jasdeep has is that with both Blood Baron and Obsidian, if he gets that deep into the game, which we've seen Nick's deck beat people long before turn 5. But both those cards, with Blood Baron, it has pro Nick Delaney's deck. It's pro black, and gives him the lifelink as well, which will help him dig himself out of Nick's aggression. And then Obsidian is going to do the same thing with that 2 life of letting him stabilize a little more.
Although Obsidian, you have to choose whether you want him to be pinging and gaining you life or blocking. You don't get to do both.
Exactly, but yeah, that gaining 2 back is basically just like, not blocking a tormented hero and then doing 2 damage to your opponent. So
something you guys should know is Jaws mulligan to 5.
Okay.
So we're starting that out with Jaws at 5.
Yeah, so it looks like Jaws did have to mulligan to 5 here. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out as Nick Delaney's enjoying his gum and his tormented heroes. And we see Jaws going with the Scryland. I believe he left that on top.
Yeah, he likes what he sees.
So Nick continuing to come out of the gates with the pressure on that hero.
Painseer or Spiteful returned?
Spiteful return. So yeah, Nick's going with his very aggressive attacks. So we see the Sovereign, which is just going to play a little more into Nick's of Nick doesn't have the option of blocking with those creatures he plays each turn. But I don't think it hurts Nick too much because he doesn't want the block to begin with.
But if Nick is planning on playing a Mogi's Marauder, he can't attack with it.
That is true. Yeah, that is one of the big effects that Sovereign can have.
Although mostly I think the Sovereign's job is going to be to trade with the Spiteful returned.
Yeah. Yeah, because that thing basically does 3 damage on each swing if it's not blocked. So, yeah. Got our little trade there, and so we see a Cackler in hand for Nick Delaney. And reconsidering, can't see what his other option is. He plays out a Swamp.
Looks like a Marauder.
Okay, so he's just going to pass here. This is interesting, because I think this is a matchup where you really want to be able to establish yourself on the board and get pressure. Because a Detention Sphere from Jaws is just going to put you behind a turn. We see Jaws actually missing his land drops for 2 turns here.
It's possible that Nick doesn't know Jaws' deck very well and is trying to not play into Supreme Verdict.
Yeah, and when you see blue-white, you always get a little, conservative. Like, you kind of play around counter magic a lot of times, even when there's not counter magic. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of the safe thing. You don't know if it's going to be the blue X spell, Syncopate. Like, Syncopate's one of those, counter spells that'll sneak into, like, your more mid-rangey aggro decks because it can fit the situation, basically.
Mm-hmm. So Jaws missed his land drop again and scooped him up.
Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward issue. If you mulligan to 5, you miss 3 land drops, your opponent's deck is doing its normal thing. It's going to take a lot. Best
case scenario, you draw your 3rd land, Detention Sphere something, and die.
Yeah. Yeah, so and that's the thing is, with Nick Delaney's deck, it isn't a control deck where you're giving your opponent, 6 to 8 turns to recover from a mulligan. It's, I'm going to punish you and not stop punishing you until you're dead. There's no time to really recover and take it safe for a little bit.
And we'll notice that the reason that Nick didn't play his creature on turn 3 was because he would be bashing with those creatures on turn 4 anyway, so no reason to expose them to any sorcery speed removal.
Yeah, that is the true thing that I overlooked there is, because of the Mogius Maniac, he gets that haste in there, so you're absolutely correct. He had no reason to just play it out and let it die. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see game 2 and we get a little more of an actual game there.
Here's hoping. Jaws will be on the play.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see any major changes that are coming out. If Jasdeep... An interesting thing is, I believe I see an ultimate price in Jasdeep's hand. And it's a little interesting because it is a 1-for-1, and paying 2 mana to kill often 1-mana creatures can seem like a tad inefficient in a deck where you're both trying to establish yourself on the board.
But when you're trying not to die to a Herald of Torment that was played on turn 3, it's
That is true. Yeah,
quite decent.
Yeah, the tempo that you lose by taking care of a bestowed creature, making that, for instance, a Herald costs 5 instead of 3, or the Spiteful Return costs 4 instead of 2, are both big things.
Thoughtseize takes Brimaz.
Yeah, and it's a pretty quick scoop up there by Jasdeep, so we didn't get too much time to really inspect his hand. But it looks like a lot of lands. We see Scryland coming down.
He's digging for a Detention Sphere because there are 2 Tormented Heroes on the battlefield.
Yeah, and we've seen this from Nick before, is that those guys will kill you quickly. Yeah, so Jasdeep is definitely tanking on this Scry, and it's a very important Scry here. Because if he doesn't...
So if he doesn't know what if he wants it, what do you think it is? Imposing Sovereign?
Yeah.
A kind of bad card, but still gas?
Yeah, it's interesting, because he kept it. So a lot of the cards that I'm thinking of would be more of cards that are mid-range. It could be something like a Blood Baron, where he's not necessarily guaranteed the mana, but knowing landing it would stabilize him.
He does have lands in his hand.
Okay. And that would be an issue.
Ultimate Price is the Herald of Torment. Nothing can stop the Precinct Captain effectively, so now he makes a Soldier, which can trade for a Tormented Hero.
Yeah, so that's a big game right there. And Precinct Captain's a card that I've been kind of low on for a long time, because I think a lot of people overrate it the same way you see Painseer overrated, where for it to do anything effectively, it has to get through your opponent's board, and the effect compared to Painseer is a lot less of just making it 1-1. So a lot of times you put in a lot more work to get a 1-1 than was necessary.
Absolutely. On the other hand, when you're making 3 1-1s and a board of 2 1s.
Yeah, this is the board position where, especially that first strike on him, too, makes him very difficult to deal with in this situation.
They say Vigilance and Lifelink are really important on your finishers because they allow you to play offense and defense at the same time.
Yeah.
Precinct Captain does exactly that job. So Nick double blocks with the 2 Mutavaults, so Precinct kills one with the first strike damage and dies to the next one.
Yeah, which I'm sure Nick's not heard for. You can see he has another land in hand, and so we see Ashiok taking, looks like 3 lands, 2 swamps and a Mutavault.
Okay, I bet Ashiok is the card he tanked on.
That probably was.
Here's a 3-drop. Does it do anything? Let's find out.
It doesn't feel like it does a lot. So we're seeing that Nick is tapping down double black. And is it a Bile Blight?
It is.
Okay, so he's taking out that Soldier of the Pantheon.
He's gonna bash.
So
where's it going?
Yeah, is it Ashiok or is it his face? It
It's
looks
the
like his
face.
face. Yeah, because being decked by Ashiok I don't think is a big concern for Nick here.
No, but if he starts getting creatures, there's a Marauder, there's a Bile Blight. Okay, so...
Yeah, so he's added a creature, but Marauder's not... It'll have an impact because he can basically haste one of his creatures.
Well, I think the Marauder's job is going to be to block.
Yeah, but if, for instance, if you get some Blood Baron here, you go Blood Baron, play Marauder, give them both haste, attack in, you've recovered a whole big advantage, or even here, getting to get a 1-1 out of the situation.
I don't think you can haste a Blood Baron with Amogus Marauders.
Oh yeah, it's pro-black.
So 4 damage from Nick's creatures came to Ashiok, so if he was going to put the Marauder into play, it would destroy him.
Okay.
He gets a Tormented Hero and a Lifebane Zombie this time.
Yeah, so he definitely has a variety of options for choosing the best creature, and it's funny, he's actually going to be able to build up a big Mogus Marauder turn off of taking his opponent's black creatures and then having that devotion.
And it looks like Ashiok, by putting the Lifebane Zombie in play, he's definitely stabilized. Ashiok's going to be able to take over this game.
Yeah.
Which is not quite what I expected.
Nor did I.
Decided to keep him.
I was definitely questioning that as well, but the card advantage that it generates, and as we've talked about so much, is that Jasdeep loves getting card advantage in ways that you don't expect. And, the using Ashiok to steal creatures to stabilize your board is definitely not what I'd expect.
Especially you're stealing black creatures, which means one of Nick's ways to punch through is no longer an option.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see, do you think, because of how much they do, you still have to keep in those Marauders even though you're against other black creatures?
I do, absolutely. Jaws doesn't have very many black creatures.
That's
the
true.
ones that he put into play...
high-end ones, and half the time it's Obsidian who's not going to be in play to block anyway.
And the one that he had in play there was Nick's. So,
Yeah.
like if you're Nick, you're really not afraid of your opponent playing an Ashiok and taking your creatures and putting them on the battlefield. Like, you accept that that's a possibility, but if your opponent's going to play a 3-drop so that 2 turns later he can get a creature, that doesn't beat your deck.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is interesting to see. You tanked hard on Ashiok. You know, you and me both question it even being in the deck still, but that's where playing a deck and understanding your personal style and how you like to play your games is going to make a big difference. That's the customization that's so important, is not just knowing the best cards and the best strategies, but how to make it so that it plays with the way you play as well. And I think Jaws has done a really good job of that with, he's not a typical aggro player, but he's put an aggro deck into his own terms.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing the advantage of that coming out, is that he's comfortable, and so he's never doing anything that's strange for him.
Absolutely. Jaws has style. He likes to draw cards, and he doesn't like for his creatures to die. No. And he's bringing that here.
Yeah, and so it'll be interesting to see, once again with this full matchup, if just the size of his creatures and all the value if he gets is going to be too much for Nick.
All right, let's start round 3.
Yeah,
Nick gets to be on the play for this one.
Yeah, third and final game here. Yeah, and so it's a big difference. I believe that the loser of this match gets 2 packs, and the winner is guaranteed at least $15 store credit in 4 packs, which is a very large step up in prizes.
Absolutely.
We see once again the classic 1-drop of the Tormented Hero for Nick Delaney, and then the black-white Scryland coming down for Jasdeep, continuing to set up his draws and make his plan work for him.
That's a Painseer on turn 2 for Nick, so he's out ahead.
Yep. And so we see damage from the lands adding up here, as on turn 2 he's down in 16, but that Precinct Captain does a lot to stabilize. And then we see, I believe that's the Bile-Blight, to allow Painseer and the hero to get in, and really putting Jasdeep down to a low 12 life.
And that's really the blessing of being a white creature instead of a black creature. White creatures, you get like 2/2s with first strike, whereas black creatures get like 2/2s with can't block unless you control a Minotaur.
Exactly. Yes, that when you're evil, sometimes you get a little punished for the wrongness of your ways. And we see that Thoughtseize came off of that Painseer, which is going to continue to punish Nick for his diabolical intents. And so we see, I believe it's a Dark Betrayal on the Painseer in response to the Thoughtseize.
Really interesting that Jaws let Nick draw before he Dark Betrayaled. I guess he didn't want to destroy the Painseer.
Yeah.
I suppose that makes sense. So Nick takes the Obsidat, Hero's Down falls the Precinct Captain.
Yeah. And so, did he play Pantheon over Brimaz? Oh, okay. So he wanted to keep up the ultimate price.
So that is a Brimaz in his hand?
I believe he did draw Brimaz that turn.
Yeah,
yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's an interesting play, but yeah, I think that was probably the right play of building up a little board and then trading down with the ultimate price.
And it was very safe.
Yes.
But when you're the bigger deck and you are at 8 life, then it's okay to be safe.
Yeah, you have to be safe. You can't get caught on a chance of Brimaz getting, Doomblade, and then all of a sudden you're just dead. We see the Darien Skyjet being added, and Herald of Torment coming down on Nick's side.
So Herald's gonna block one of the cats. He's gonna take 7, going to 6.
He has the option to trade with the Sky Knight as well, but yeah, we do see one of the cats going down, putting Nick down to 6.
During his upkeep, he'll go down to 5, and then he looks like he's gonna be in
Oh,
trouble.
we see Ashiok again, so this is Painseer and a Mogus Marauder. So yeah, this is a very dangerous situation for Nick here. Of that Marauder can come down next turn, haste up maybe a creature coming out of his hand, and that's at 5 life. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. So Nick offers the handshake, scoops up his cards. That was more than he could handle.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because we saw that Jaws wasn't afraid to take damage from his lands to advance his board. And I think you see sometimes people be a little too conservative with those sometimes because it hurts to hurt yourself with your lands.
Absolutely.
And I know that Jaws has no qualms about not playing basic lands. Is that he just plays full complements of Scry lands and Shock lands. He's not worried about those coming into play tap. He'll figure out the best path to work around it, and he'll take that damage for that fixing and that consistency.
Which is a fabulous skill that you have to relearn about every 2 years.
Yeah. It takes a little bit of bravery too, to know that sometimes you're just not going to be able to cast the spells on the turns you want because you're making your mana work correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But that's going to win you more games than those times where it comes in tapped and you just can't cast that one spell you want to.
Absolutely. So Jaws makes it into our top 4. It looks like our top 4 was Jaws, Alex, Ty, and who was Ty just playing in front of us?
Dane.
And Dane.
Yeah.
Top 4 split the prize pool, so this is going to be the end of our transmission.
Yeah, but we saw some very interesting decks coming out today, and we saw a changing of the guard as Nick Delaney was not able to top 4 after his victory.
Well, when you're playing Magic is a hard game.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't get to stay on top for long.
You have to draw lands and spells in the right order.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, he made the top 8. He got a prize pool. He's making a very strong showing. I haven't seen the list for the Bellingham Invitational, City Champs Invitational, whatever that's called.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if Nick wasn't on it.
Exactly. Yeah, so I'm very low on that one.
Are you?
Yeah, I top 4'd on a dead week with Jaws Jun deck, actually, which is now what Rosie Crow's actually piloting, that she piloted to the top 8 tonight as well.
Right, I believe she traded 4 Arid Mesas for that deck.
It's the story that I've heard. I'm not really sure who won that trade because I haven't pieced it out,
Yeah.
but it's an interesting trade.
Yeah, I think it's probably Jaws got a little more in value, but Rosie also won the hours that Jaws put into crafting that deck list.
And yeah, that having played that deck list, that is a crafted deck. Like, there's a lot of intent that went into that deck. But yeah, so just a reminder for everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, give us a follow. You'll get alerts whenever we come online. You know, we're doing FNMs right now. We did a Legacy last week. We're trying to expand a little bit, you know, adding more events. So if you want to be finding out what's going on, following's a great way. And any thoughts before we head out?
Yeah, we're gonna start posting all of these videos to YouTube. So check the Facebook. We'll post a link to our YouTube page. It'll now have the commentary. So unlike what we did the first 1 and 2 weeks, what you'll be seeing on YouTube is what you saw today. So we're trying to step that up and get that all together for you.
Yeah, so until our next event, I'm Kagan Joyner.
And I'm Brad McCarter.
And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in.
I do own basic lands, just let me know. But they will.